Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. It's Cone Handmade. Here I make easy peasy tutorials to get you started on your sewing journey. And if you're a beginner, you're in good hands because my videos are detailed and I show you every step that I took so that you too can recreate them at home. Now today we'll be making this beautiful A-line shift dress that has a slit around the front neckline and very lovely bell sleeves. Now, without wasting time, let's get started. Now here's the fabric I used. I used a little above 2 yards, and I also have this extra fabric that is around half yard, and this is the one I'll be using to cut out the sleeves. Next thing I'll be using is my hemming gum to keep the facings down. Alright, now if you look at this fabric, you'll notice this pattern in the middle. So you need to fold the fabric in a way that the pattern is lying vertical so that when you put on the dress, it's straight down. Okay, so I arranged my fabric, I placed my fabric that way and I folded it twice. So here you see me folding the second time. Okay, so now I have the folding into four, and if you notice, the design is right in the middle of my fold. Okay, so that when I open it up, it will be beautiful in the middle. Okay, so the first thing is to rule the shoulder line at the top of the fabric, and from here we'll take the rest of the measurements. First measurement is the armhole. You can get a rough estimate by doing your round bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. And then from the shoulder, I'll also take my shoulder to waistline, and the next is my shoulder to hip line, and finally will be the length of the dress. So this is where the fabric stopped, and you also need to consider the hemming allowance. All right, so I quickly ruled out these straight lines using those points that we marked earlier, and now we can put our body measurement starting with the neck. I used 3 inches for the neck width for both the front and the back, and for the neck depth I used 1.5 inches for the back, and I used 2.5, but I'll advise that you use 3 inches or more, like 3.5 inches for your front neck depth, so that it comes down a little. So I squared out those points, and now I'm going to connect them with curves just like this. Okay, so the next thing will be to take the half shoulder length. So on that shoulder line, I'm going to put my half shoulder length starting from the folded edge. And you know that the folded edge is towards me. So I mark that point, and then I'll come down from there by 1.5 inches for the shoulder slope. So connect it to the neck width with a slant line like this, and then from the shoulder slope I'll go down with a straight line just like this. So I'll come back to the bust line, and here I'll do my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches. 1 inch is for ease and the other inch is for the sewing allowance. So I'll quickly mark that point there. And the next thing we're going to do is to get the half of this armhole measurement by placing the tape this way and folding it so that we get the exact middle point. So you quickly mark that area, and then on that point we're going to come in towards the folded edge by 0.5 inches. So you place your tape right on that line and mark half an inch. And then we'll start from the shoulder slope. We're going to make 2 curves. The first one will go through the 0.5 inches, and that would be the front armhole. And the second one will go from the shoulder slant on that line across just like this. And then it will now be time to put our body measurements on the rest of the other lines. So for each of them, what I did was my round waist or hip measurement divided by 4 plus 2 inches. Now, usually we would mark the same measurement on the hip on the hem, but this time we're going to add 2 extra inches so that we can get the A-line effect. So that will mean that the total measurement will be my round hip measurement divided by 4 plus 4 inches. So when you mark that point over there, you will go up by 1 inch, just like this, and note that point. Now the reason for this is so that we can eliminate any sharp pointy edge. So connect it with a curve just like I did. And now we're going to connect all those points that we marked with our slant lines like this. So I just made a little curve around the waist so that it's not too sharp. And now we can start cutting. And as always, we will start cutting with from our back neckline. So we're not going to touch the front neckline. So you quickly cut that area. And when you get to the armhole, just like we did for the neck, we're going to cut the back armhole first. And then you finish off by cutting along the lines that we marked previously. All right, so now we have 2 pieces, one for the back and one will be the front bodice. So we'll put away the back and we are now left with the front. Now for this front, we can now go ahead to cut the front neckline and also cut the front armhole. Now after that, we will now do the front slit. I use 5 inches from the front neck depth, just like this. You can make it longer or shorter if you prefer. So I just give it a slit like this. Make sure you don't go beyond the point that you marked. All right, so when you open up your dress, this is what it should look like. Now now it's time to make the facing. So I'll just get a piece of fabric, fold it in half, and I'll place it right underneath my front bodice, making sure that the folded edge of both fabrics are aligned correctly. Then I'll just quickly cut around the neckline and also cut around the shoulder this way. And then I'll make the same slit on the facing, and you need to be careful so that both slits end at the same point. Now you take out your pins and we are now going to cut out excess fabric on the facing. Okay. So I just used a rough estimate of around 3 inches. Make sure you have enough fabric after the slit. So when you open it up, here's what you should have. So now we'll quickly do the same thing for the back bodice. Get a piece of fabric, fold it in half, place it underneath and align both edges correctly. You can use a pin to hold it down and then you quickly cut around the neck and the shoulders. Okay. And when you're done, here's what you should have. All right, so now that we're through with the facings, let's go ahead to cut the sleeves. So I bring that extra piece of fabric and I fold it twice, which is the folding into 4. Now when you fold it into 4, you're going to cut out the 2 sleeves at the same time. So the length of my fabric is my desired sleeve length, including my sleeve hemming allowance. First thing we're going to do is to come to this top area and we're going to mark our cap height. I use 5 inches for mine. You can use 5.5, you can use 4.5. It's just basically the length from your shoulder tip down to your biceps line. Okay. Now on that line, I'm going to put our round armhole measurement plus 2 extra inches. 1 inch is for ease and 1 is for the seam allowance. So connect that point to this edge on this folded corner with a slant line. And then I'll get the length. I'm just trying to get the half measurement by placing my tape on the line this way and fold it in half. So this midpoint, we're going to mark that area, and then I go up by half an inch on this side and the same half an inch on the other half. What we're trying to do now is to create this like sort of an elongated S shape, which is going to be the shape of the armhole opening. So you just quickly trace it around, and after you trace it, you're going to measure it to see if it is the same measurement that you have on your dress. So for me, it was slightly bigger, so I marked it where I marked it at 10 inches, which is what I have on my actual dress. Then we'll come to this bottom side, and this is where we'll create the bell effect. I use 15 inches across the width. If you want it bigger, then use more fabric. If you want it less, that's also fine. So I come up on that point by half an inch so that I can eliminate any pointy edges. And I make a curve that way. So now we're going to connect this top area to the hem of the sleeve using a slant line, just like this. All right, so now we can cut, and we're going to trace around that S shape and then just quickly cut the rest of the sleeve. And don't forget that little curve that we made around the hem. So you cut it that way. So we'll come to this point here and we'll just give it a notch, and it's going to reflect on the two sleeves. Now this notch is going to guide us when it's time to attach the sleeves to the dress. All right, so here we're going to place our facings because it's time to sew them. The first thing is place it right side on top of the right side of the dress. So you see it's right sides facing each other, and we're going to sew from one shoulder area following the shape of the neck and the slit until we come up to the other side. So I like to hold it down, like hold the fabrics together with pins so that everything stays in place while you're sewing. And I'm using around half an inch sewing allowance so that I can have something to notch when I'm done sewing. The notching is important because it helps the facing to lie, like to stay flat when you flip it over to the other side. And while you sew, you're going to be moving your work around. So make sure that you have your pin down each time you want to turn. Then you lift the presser foot and then you move your work around. All right, when you're done, you quickly notch all around the corners. I like to trim off any pointy corners like around the beginning of the slits. And please be careful when you're notching so that you don't cut into your seams, like cut your thread. Okay, the first time when you flip it over, it doesn't look neat, right? The edges look ruled, but you're going to give it a good press so that everything will stay nice and flat. Okay, so we just quickly sew down the facing for the back bodies. This one is easier because it's just like a big C. So we just sew around using the same half an inch sewing allowance. Quickly notch around and then flip it over. You can see I made like extra tiny cuts around the V pointy part of the slit. This is to make sure that it really stays flat. Okay, so give it a nice press, and here's what you should have. Okay, so now it's time to join the dress at the shoulders. You're going to place the front and the back right sides facing each other. Okay, and now I'll show you how we're going to sew the facing. Come to the shoulder area with the facings facing each other like this. Facings facing each other, right? So align them correctly this way, and then we're going to nicely flip it over onto the side of the shoulder, like this way. Okay, you just turn it over this way. You can hold it down with pins like I'm doing, and then we're going to do a straight stitch across. Don't forget to do a good back stitch when you begin and also when you finish. All right, now when you're done, if you open up your facings, this is what you should have. Okay, so part of the raw edges is hidden under the facing, but we're going to serge it. I don't have a serger, so I'll just take it to my tailor customer and she's going to weave it with her weaving machine. Okay, so I'm just showing you the same thing I'm doing on the other side of the facing of the shoulder. Okay, so when you flip, here's what you should have, and here is the finished work, but not the finished dress. Okay, we're not done. We're not done. So now it's time to attach the sleeves. First thing I like to do is to hem the sleeve, because the bell area makes the sleeve really wide, and it's going to be quite a task hemming it when I finish attaching it to the dress. So to attach it, I'm going to remember that notch we made earlier. Okay, now just keep that in mind. I need to get the midpoint of my dress by aligning it this way. Okay, and then I'll just notch it around the shoulder, and that's the middle. So I'll take my sleeve and I'll place it right side on top of the right side of my dress. Okay, make sure that those midpoints are right on top of each other. And now you can use pins to hold them down, and we're going to be sewing on top of the sleeve from this midpoint down to the side of the dress on one side, and also we'll start again on the other side down to the side of the dress. Now here's what it should look like when you're doing this. The fabrics tend to like squeeze together, but don't worry, just keep arranging them, keeping them flat and making sure that they are right on top of each other correctly. Take your time, sew in bits, and before you know it, you're done. Okay, all right. After attaching my sleeves, I had some extra fabric. Like I always say, it's better to have extra than to have it too little. So there's nothing to worry about. Just trim off the excess. You're still on track. So now you just fold them together and then join the dress on the side, starting from the sleeves. Okay, like from the hem of the sleeve, you sew across down to the armpit area until you get to the hem of the dress. So while I was sewing, I came back with my tape because I wanted to be sure that I have enough armhole opening. What I actually needed was 9 inches, but there I had 10, so the 1 inch is for my ease. Okay, so here for finishing touch, I'm just going to use my hemming gum to hold down the facings so it doesn't move around a lot. So you put it underneath just like this, spritz some water. I like to spritz some water, and then I'll give it a quick press. And don't forget, you have to repeat the same thing for the back neck facing. And these raw edges, I'm going to weave them when I take it to my tailor. And with that, guys, our dress is finally ready. Yes, our A-line shift dress with bell sleeves and a front neckline slit. Guys, this dress is so comfortable to wear, and I really love the bell sleeves. I love the shape that it gives to the dress. It makes it quite stylish. Yeah, so guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions. So guys, please don't forget to turn on your notification so that you be notified each time I upload a new video. So till next time, bye.